My name is Jared Altic, and I'm here with Kaleb Sackett.
Hey, Jared. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Today I wanted to talk about our church. Wyandotte County Christian Church has been in Kansas City for 48 years. And we call our church Wyandotte. That's kind of our shorthand. We're not going to say Wyandotte County Christian Church every single time we mention the church. But we call it Wyandotte, and it's an independent Christian church. It's a restoration movement. We teach the Bible every week. We have contemporary worship. We're a friendly church. We have 2 ministers on staff. We have, 2 church buildings. We have a lot of details about us. And as a church, we have a philosophy, a mission statement that we're going to be a group of people who love God, love each other, and serve the world. But all of those descriptors don't really give you a feel for what the church is like. And it occurred to me that neither one of us actually grew up here.
Right.
We're both outsiders, at least we were at one point. And I thought we could share some of our first impressions of what it was like to be new at Wyandotte County Christian Church.
Maybe give a feel to someone who hasn't been here before, or what they might experience on their first visit if they were to walk through our doors.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes that first impression it just leaves a lasting impression. And I know I've got a couple that I want to share. And so how about you go first? What do you have for us?
All right. Well, this might sound really, obvious or stereotypical, but truly, one of my first impressions was just how super warm and friendly this particular church is. I felt like so many people just embraced me and my wife and warmed up to us right from the start.
Yeah.
I mean, including little kids coming up and giving you a hug or something like that.
Yeah.
And there was one particular individual who, as we were in the interviewing process, she told us that she had been praying for us and that we were just a perfect fit and that she could just see it. We were supposed to belong to this church, and that made me feel really good, actually.
Yeah.
I've had numerous family members attend our church over the couple of years that I've been here, and usually my wife and I are up on stage doing musical worship stuff prior to service, and so our family members will get there a little bit early, but it's not apparent or obvious that they belong to us.
Oh, yeah.
To other people.
They're just coming in as strangers into the church building.
And people know what they look like now, but they didn't at first.
Right.
And so they always remark to me, whoa, the people here are so friendly, always coming up to us and saying hi, so many people. But it's not that they were doing that because, this is the minister's family. They were just doing it because, hey, these are some new people and we don't know them. Let's go say hi and introduce ourselves to them.
Yeah, and they've had a good impression
from
that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so your family's first impressions of the church
True.
have been really good. Now, I should say that Caleb's first impressions are all from about 2 years ago when he was first hired here and came to our church in this part of the country. My first impressions are from 20 years ago. I've just celebrated my 20th anniversary here. And so this was, like I said, not my home church, but I am from this general region. And so I came in and I didn't know that this church had been here. I'd never been down this street before and didn't know anybody, didn't know any of the people. But you mentioned little kids coming up to hug you. That is a long-standing tradition because that's one of the stories I want to tell. When I came, so much of those early weeks were such a blur because you're meeting so many people and there's so many new names and you're unfamiliar with the surroundings, But I remember being kind of not in a fog, but like I said, you're just distracted because there's so many people and you're trying to keep so many names, juggling them in your head. And I remember I was talking to this person and I'm turning over to talk to that person, and suddenly I feel some small person has latched onto my leg. And I'm not going to name her because she's an adult now. This was 20 years ago, obviously, but at the time she was like 4 or 5 years old, maybe. And this precious little girl, just as innocent and sweethearted as could be. I'm the brand new minister, and well, of course, she loves me. Right? And she just latched on, gave me this big old hug right around the thigh. And I'm like, what a precious precious thing. I mean, I got to wonder what's the dialogue that's happening inside that family's home about, hey, we have a new minister. We should love them and accept them and treat them kindly. And I mean, I was still a stranger to them. But there was such an outpouring of love, such an eagerness to show acceptance. And I grew up in a church that was like just off Main Street in a small town, right? Yeah. And so there, the outsiders, I mean, someone could have moved into town 10 years ago, but they were still the new people, right?
Small town feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Where our church, even though we're a smaller church, we're on a highway. And so we're equidistant to like 3 or 4 different communities, which means there's not that territorial, well, you're an outsider. Well, in a sense, we're all outsiders. And so that means it's a lot easier to be accepted and loved, even though you don't shop at the same grocery store or you don't send your kids to the same school district. We all just belong to one another because we belong to Christ. And I just, that one, I mean, I've had other little kids who come and give me a hug or a high five or something. That's happened a lot over the years, but that first one, that will always be this, like, dear to my heart.
It stuck
memory.
with you.
Oh, so much.
Well,
absolutely.
They say Southern hospitality is a thing, but I'm here to tell you, so is Midwestern friendliness,
yes,
all right?
Yeah.
And our church has that in spades.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing for me, a little bit of a pivot here, but something that I noticed right away when I first started coming here was that this church is not primarily at all after your money. And frequently, I thought this was really kind of weird at first, but the person who gives the communion meditation and prays for the offering here at our church frequently mentions that tithes and offerings are for members and regular attenders, and says something to the effect of, if you're a visitor here, really, we're not looking for an offering.
Yeah, we don't want your money. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, why do they say that so much? Like, I heard it kind of week after week, not literally every week, but many of them.
Pretty frequently.
But now I actually really appreciate that it's a part of our church's ethos. It's almost a part of our liturgy, kind of.
Yeah.
And I love that. We're not after your money. That's not what we're seeking after.
No.
And we do talk about money every summer. We preach usually 3 weeks on financial stewardship, and you usually give what you call a money back guarantee about, hey, if you question our motives at all, really, give to a different church. They'd love to have your tithe.
Yeah, well, we're not telling you not to tithe. You're a Christian. You should tithe, but you don't have to give it to us. If you think we just want your money and that's the only reason we like you, give it to somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But man, with all that being said, our church is so faithful in their giving. Yes. We don't see any individual people's giving. We don't know anything about that.
The ministers don't. Right.
But we do see like the total. And we're what I'd call small to medium-sized church. We regularly have over 100 people in attendance on a Sunday. But man, our giving just continues to grow, even during a year like 2020 with COVID-19.
Yeah. Where so many churches are seeing these huge budget deficits because of the pandemic. We're doing fine. And it's not that we're particularly wealthy. We just have people who are really faithful. And they put their money where their mouth is. They mean it. They belong to this church. They love the church and the ministries that we do, and they're just determined that they're just going to show that through financial faithfulness.
Yeah. Well, suffice it to say, our church is just so much more interested in your growth with God and in your growth with the body of believers and in your daily living. And God has always provided for us, and we're thankful for that. And so we're not trying to leech on to people and shake them for all their coins or anything like that.
A lot of people have bad experiences, or they've had their association with people who've had bad experiences with churches that were just really saying, okay, you've got to give us your money, and we're expecting this from you.
Or maybe they have the televangelist experience, you know.
Yeah, give to get. Yeah, that's some gross things that have happened out there in Christian culture. And I'm glad that's not really present at all at Wyandotte. We just have good, responsible people who take care of the church, and the church has done great even through the great recession of 2009. Man, we weathered that really well. And when we have to tighten our belt, we can. But we don't have to be heavy-handed with new folks, and we're not trying to shake them down or anything like
Right.
that.
Right. Well, tell me another first impression that you had, Jared.
Well, I'll tell you, talk about first impression. This is actually from my interview. Okay, so maybe the first time I was ever in the building, we were in our other building, the Brower building, and we met in what at the time was the library. And so they had squeezed a table in there amongst the bookshelves, and everybody was sitting around the table who was on the search committee. And I was 23 years old and came in to interview for this spot. And everybody asked lots of great questions. People were super friendly and whatever. But there was a woman at the other end of the table, and her name was Mabel Mather. Mabel was a character. She was old school, and she was your. There might be a bit of a stereotype, maybe in some parts of the country, where you just have these women who are tough, and they're hardworking, and they're kind of no nonsense. And Mabel, if you have that stereotype in your mind,
She fit the bill.
That's who she was. Yes, absolutely. And in a good way. And Mabel was pretty quiet through most of the interview. And I answered all kinds of theological questions. They actually I had to fill out a 23 question essay. Like it was complex, the stuff I had to write out and whatever. But when it came to Mabel, she asked me just one question. She stared me down the length of that table, and she said, "Are you too good to take the trash out?"
What a question.
Yeah, and I'm like, "No, ma'am." Now Mabel has passed away. She's gone home to be with the Lord several years ago now, and I still carry the trash out because I'm still scared of her. But her point was, she's the type person, she rolls up her sleeves and works. And she serves the church so that she can serve the Lord. And that was how she demonstrated her love for Christ and her love for other people. She stayed behind and she scrubbed and she cleaned and she did the behind the scenes kind of things like taking trash out. And she wanted to make sure this young whippersnapper was not
too high and mighty.
Yeah, too good to get his hands dirty. She wanted to know, okay, if you're going to be part of this church family, are you willing to get out there and help? And man, that made an impression on me. And everybody has different gifts and different places to fit in, but everyone can carry the trash out. And I just thought that was a really impactful thing that she said.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my last one was also kind of during the interview process, right when we were first coming into contact with the church. I just loved how the family dynamic and makeup of this church was and still is. When I interviewed here, I went to a few different people's homes and had meals with them, and they invited a couple different families from the church over, and I met a whole bunch of people at those dinners. But that kept on happening too. I mean, even after I got hired here, I'd go to someone's really big family, Sunday dinner or lunch or whatever, or just, really be with the people. And I felt warmly invited, and I felt like, oh, this is family. And I noticed right away at this church a really wide age range of the people here. It's pretty even distribution. Even in areas where a lot of churches are lacking, we, percentage-wise, have a pretty decent number of people who are in like their 20s and 30s, and areas where some churches maybe have a little bit of a gap or something like that. We've got lots of little kids and babies, and we also got everybody's grandparents, right? 70s and 80s, and it's wonderful. And we do at our church have a number of like connected families who siblings or parents and children or who go here together.
Right.
But it's a good thing. It's not like one of those, one family calls all the shots and rules the roost kind of situations. Everyone's welcome here. Everyone feels like family. And our church is truly multi-generational. In fact, we have one particular family here that actually has 4 generations of people who go to our church.
Yeah.
Which
They
I
all
think
attend church together.
I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. And we have multiple families that do have 3 generations that attend here together. So more than one household. And
we have all sorts of different family makeups. We have young singles, older singles, widows and widowers. We have young married couples who have kids of all different ages, older couples whose kids have grown up and left the house and moved on. And absolutely. And, these are the people who they're teaching your kids Sunday school classes, and your kids come to think of these people as aunts and uncles and grandparents. And I'm about to have my first kid, and I'm really excited for that, for our own kids to have that family feel of, man, this is people that we belong to. We belong to them, they belong to us, and it's great.
Yeah. My first Sunday, my oldest was less than a week old. He was born on a Tuesday, and Sunday we were in church. And so he's 5 days old. And my 5 kids now have grown up with all of these extra grandparents, extra aunts and uncles, extra people in the church.
Literally their whole lives.
Yeah. And that's been a super blessing to me to be able to be in a church like that and have my kids have that as a church experience. It's been overwhelmingly positive for them and very close-knit, very, very... it was just a safe place to have my kids grow up, and it's been really good.
Yeah. I do have one more take, but it's not from me.
Okay.
This past week in one of my adult classes, Bible study classes that I teach, we actually had another member of our congregation who, unsolicited, just made a comment, and she's not one to speak up a lot necessarily, but she said, we've been here a few years now, and this place really felt like family to us because people here didn't act like they were perfect. And I know that I certainly have flaws, and people were all too willing to just say, I do too. And she felt like she didn't have to hide her flaws or try to be perfect. And she was like, I really, really appreciated that. And it just felt like family. And I thought that was really cool. So I just wanted to share that real quick.
The threshold to become part of this family is maybe a little different than what people might have experienced in other churches. There are churches in America that are based on your ethnic background. If you're Ukrainian, you go to the Ukrainian, Orthodox Church,
right.
That kind of thing. There are churches that belong to certain neighborhoods, and being in the neighborhood versus commuting there makes you an outsider, or being insider versus outsider. And there are certainly a lot of churches where it's expected you're going to be of a certain income bracket or something like that. The great thing about Wyandotte County Christian Church is that we're one of those churches where the way you get to be on the inside is you show up. There's not really any other threshold. There's not something else we're wanting from you or expecting of you. We just need you to be here. And we want
you to be here.
Yeah. We want you to belong and to be a part of what we're doing. And to do that, you just have to be present. We want to see you each week, and we want to share that part of our lives with you. And those who do belong. Those who make the commitment to be here regularly, they just become part of the family. And those who don't get to church very often, they probably feel like they're out on the margins. And my heart breaks for that because I'm like, there's nothing really keeping you away except for your being present here.
Sure.
We just want you. We want you to be here and to share this time with us, to share these meals with us, to share the spiritual meals of reading God's word and worshiping together. We just want you to have that over and over and over again with us, and that's the only real requirement to belong here.
Yeah, and in that way, we can engage in the kingdom of God together,
Yeah.
and we can fulfill our mission statement to love God, to love each other, and to serve the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Caleb.
Yeah, thanks, Jared.